Louis, thanks for jumping on. Excited to be here. We got Louis Vito joining us, professional snowboarder. I'm founder CEO of Icon Source. Happy to fill you guys in on that a little bit more, but wanted to start off with Louis giving a little bit of a background as a professional athlete on what he's been up to and how we've gotten to know each other.
Yeah, so as Chase said, I've been a professional snowboarder. I've been a long time. I've done X Games, Olympics. It's kind of funny because if you don't know who I am, you can ask your grandma, because I have a lot of grandmas that know me from Dancing with the Stars, and that one will never die. But yeah, so I've worked with brands from Nike, Red Bull, McDonald's, TD Ameritrade, Smuckers, Toyota, Sprint, Boost Mobile, very wide range of brands. And then I met Chase through working at Red Bull. We were with Red Bull forever, and that's where we kind of developed our working relationship into a friendship and long-term friendship. And here we are today.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I thought when we were going to bring this panel together of what's a great athlete to bring on to really explain to brands and to people from all backgrounds on how they can work with athletes and go through the evolution of how a lot of people are working with influencers today. Louis is a great example. He's kind of been involved in sports marketing from the early days when Nike and Red Bull were making really large contracts and there was just a few brands operating into the space, to now when there's just a wide range of people interested because of what influencer marketing has really brought to the table. So yeah, excited to have Louis on and kind of talk to you guys a little bit about what we're doing here at Icon Source as well.
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting, over the years of seeing how brands and marketing have really changed. And I mean, especially now, when I started out, I was stoked to have snowboard sponsors that sent me t-shirts and free clothes like that, to doing commercials and your very standard deals. In snowboarding, it's put a sticker on your snowboard and go do your thing. You do your contest run, put your board up next to your face when you're waiting for your score, and you have your typical video incentives and then your snowboarding magazine photo incentives. And it was very kind of textbook in that sense. Every snowboard deal was the same. And then obviously, as social media has grown, really only in the last probably 5 years, we've really started to see social media deals. So then you see your standard sponsors adding in maybe a post here or there. And then now you have all these brands coming in that will pay you X amount for this many posts. And now you're seeing TikTok posts, Twitter posts, Facebook posts, Instagram posts, Instagram stories, reels. And it's really, the whole landscape has completely changed from the very beginning, which makes me feel pretty old. But I guess when I'm comparing it to like my dad trying to explain things to him, I'm fairly young. But it's definitely changed a lot. And even in the last 5-7 years, I think it's really exploded with this social media marketing.
Yeah, it's been exciting to see. Like Louis said, we met previously when I was running athlete marketing at Red Bull, and he was an athlete that I was managing, and we had put together these really complex contracts and put together these really exciting activations and projects all over the world. And through doing that, I really saw the value that Red Bull got out of working with these high profile athletes, but saw that it was challenging for most brands to ever enter the category. It's a very intimidating process. They didn't understand the agents that represent the athletes. They didn't know how to get in touch with them. They didn't know what athlete's a good fit. How would they actually leverage them? How do they put together a contract? And so after being at Red Bull for close to 7 years and working with Louis in a wide range of athletes like Reggie Bush and Chris Bryant and Victoria Azarenka, I decided there's got to be a better way to bring more brands into this space that companies like Oakley and Nike and Adidas and Red Bull have been spending tons of money in and getting tons of value out of. And so that's when I left and started Icon Source. And part of it is because brands are now getting comfortable to spend money around influencers and athletes because of the analytics that comes with social media. So they can finally see how many people are they getting their messaging in front of? What does that look like? What is that engagement? And before, it was just brands like Nike placing a bet on great individuals that told great stories that were accomplishing great things. And so it's really exciting to see more people at the table ready to find ways to work with them. And before, there was not a good solution to invite brands to work with athletes. So naturally, they were going to social media influencers and different folks that were much more accessible. And so it's really our passion now to try to find a way to bring a lot of brands to line up with those authentic athletes that also use their products, believe in their brands. So yeah, it's a really exciting time to watch, Louis and myself grow, as this market develops. So,
Chase, you went from working at Red Bull, which, as most people know, big company, big budgets, big projects. And you kind of took a leap of faith to start eCom Source. I know there's, marketing agencies that specialize in social media, but there's not a ton of it in the sports realm, especially working with athletes from all over. What was kind of your thought to take that big leap, and what's your passion behind doing it?
Yeah, it was really just the dedication to the craft that athletes have. And I have a background being an athlete, and most of my friends are athletes. And I just saw how committed they were to being the very best of what they did. And they earned that audience through a lot of hard work and a lot of time, just being the best that they can. And so I wanted to find a way to bring more brands to the table for them to be able to work with. I saw they were often being shortchanged. Opportunities were less and less frequent. Other industries have always been involving creating these marketplaces that bring buyers and sellers together, like travel, ride sharing, hotels, airline flights. And so sports marketing, being a relationships business, has been very slow to evolve. Nobody was really incentivized to disrupt it. And the few people that it worked really well for, they didn't really want to change it up. But there was a lot of athletes that I knew, and people that were coming up that were incredible individuals, or maybe from different communities where they brought a ton of value. They just didn't have the opportunity to get in front of as wide a range of brands that could actually enjoy working with them. So through that, was really compelled. And so I left Red Bull and started eCom Source, and we launched this. It's a digital marketplace connecting, aspiring brands of all sizes, from local mom and pops to national brands like Microsoft and Adobe, to work with the right athletes that fit whatever their needs are, depending on the athlete's likes, interests, geographic location, and whatnot. So it's been super exciting.
So if I'm a brand and I want to connect with athletes, I mean, we talked a little bit about this just because I've been on it from the athlete side, but never from the brand side. What's the process like for a brand? Like, how do they even know where to start on finding someone that fits with them?
Yeah. So we made a number of different filters to make it a lot easier for brands. Because when you log on, we have thousands of athletes, professional and college. So a lot of people just don't know where to start. So you can either search by gender, by sport, athlete's name, social media following, similar likes and interests. You can search cooking and female athletes. You can search soccer players, whatever it may be. It makes it a lot easier to all of a sudden quickly bring that group down that's a reasonable outreach. And then you can have conversations with multiple different athletes at the same time to really find out who's a good fit, who actually believes in what you're doing, uses your product. And then, you're not committed until you both are ready, and then you can send that contract.
I think it's the most interesting that you can do that, because, especially at Red Bull, they kind of always push very hard, and you see it more and more as the social media influencer group and with athletes and just influence in general grow. But it's all about organic. How can you implement products or brands as organically as possible? Because I think that's the thing. It's hard is you have these companies that come in, oh, we want this athlete, and they don't really know. They're like, here's what we want you to post. And it just, you can tell it's just like you got a sponsored post on Instagram. Yeah. But really having brands connecting with the right athlete and doing it in an organic way where these athletes use the product, support the company, and you really align on multiple fronts.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. And that's why we just tell brands, start to get to know the athlete. The messaging portal is one of the most important features. The difference in whether those marketing dollars go to a banner advertisement or billboard versus an athlete or even an influencer, the biggest difference is it's a human being, and they have a history, and they have things that drive them and motivate them. And so you really want to make sure that this is a great representation. And so anytime there's a whole bunch of third parties in between that communication, it kind of breaks down on that authenticity, which, you know, is the subject of this whole panel, is why I feel that athletes can provide so much value, because they can't really sacrifice their performance. They can't sacrifice a product that is subpar, because they have to continue to be the best at their craft. That's what's given them the stage, given them the audience for them to speak to. And so, you know, when there's that real connection as a consumer with an athlete, it's just much more believable, much more relatable to actually change your habits and change what that emotional engagement is like when you see them using a brand. Because, you know, there's a number of different things that really drive those audience. One, an athlete, you know, that is great at their sport, you know, there's a dedicated audience that loves snowboarding or loves car racing or loves, you know, track and field. And so you're instantly going to get a ton of validation from that entire community. And then they're going to see your product, whether it's a fashionable item or a performance item, being actually used and portrayed by that individual, which is just so much more powerful, I believe, than just someone taking pretty pictures on the beach with a photo, because they have an enormous audience that, you know, they gained from maybe going on great vacations with their parents when they were kids, or who knows. I have a lot of questions on how some of these Instagram, you know, influencers build their audiences. I think some of them create really, really compelling content, but I know for a fact that athletes, they're incredible at their craft. They've spent their whole life sacrificing a lot of things to be the best of the best. And there's a huge audience that has a ton of respect for that.
And I think also, you know, you see brands that want to enter some, especially action sports space, but they don't really know how. So when, you know, they come out with this content that's kind of corny, because you have people that, oh, it's got a snowboard here and it looks great. And they don't understand that if you're trying to get into that market, especially action sports, we're going to call BS on things very quickly, because we know. And now I feel like with companies like eCom Source, you can actually get an authentic athlete in that space. And really, I mean, I know a lot of my athlete friends, like, it's great to be involved. I've really stopped looking at things as sponsorship and look at it more like partnerships. Where are you trying to go? This is where I'm trying to go, and let's get there together. And I think that's where the communication tool is so great. I mean, I love my agent and working with agents, but having that talk directly to the client, and you're not missing, you're not playing the game of telephone, and really understanding. And then the brand also has kind of the sense of relief of knowing the athlete as a person, rather than this is what I've heard about him. You can actually talk and kind of structure something to it, so everybody wins at the end of the day.
Yeah, you know, and I was watching the group before us with Griffin and Josh, and they actually touched on this. It's so key as a brand that's going into a new category. Ask the individual, you know, like, how do you want to be perceived with our product? How would you envision creating content through this? You know, whether you're like a heavy performance-based athlete that's maybe in like football or basketball setting, or if you're more of an artistic athlete like snowboarding or skateboarding or surfing, a lot of times it's just one of the best parts of working with an athlete is just asking them, how would you like to fit with our brand? And how would you like to sell this messaging? Because once again, you guys have created the audience, you know what they want to see, you know what performs well. And anytime you give the talent that kind of creative freedom, allows it to be put together in a much more authentic way, versus saying, here's our project. This is what we decided in our marketing meetings. And we just need you to kind of fit within this box. I think that creates frustrations with the talent, and the worst off, it creates frustrations with their audience, which is the whole reason that you're putting the campaign together. So, which Louis, I know you know, when I was at Red Bull, it was always a blended approach of what's our business goals? What do we need to actually achieve? But how can this be translated through your audience and through your channels and done the right way that you're excited about? It's going to mutually grow both of our goals. And then I think it's a lot stronger when it comes into the to the consumer's hands.
Yeah, and I always find it's kind of that fine line, right? As an athlete, you want to appease the brand and you want to check the boxes that they're going for. So it's nice to have the guidelines, and then it's also nice to have our freedom to relay that messaging to our following the best that we can. Now, another angle I've also seen is, if you want a little bit more control as the brand, is setting up a shoot maybe for your product and the athlete, and then you kind of work on the creative angle with the athlete together. Or you just, you know, as an athlete, I've been in kind of uncomfortable situations where you're like, that what you want me to say or what we're doing is not really authentic to me and to my brand. And I think, again, it's just communication, but I see there's two angles, is really just kind of letting the freedom go and the athlete can, shoot it whatever they want, or setting up a shoot yourself and putting in a little bit of money to the photo shoot and getting a lot more content from photos and videos that the athlete can use as well as the brand. So it's kind of been a couple different ways I've seen brands work, but I think it's always key to have the communication with the athlete, but making sure that the athlete understands your messaging points and then you understand how they want to relay it, and trusting the athlete at the end of the day.
Totally. And I think the nice part now is, for our platform, we have thousands of athletes. So there's so many different levels that a brand could finally begin the process of working with an athlete for maybe the first time. And that price range can be all over the place. I mean, historically, most of the time, any sort of athlete contracts makes the media. They're, millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars. And so that, I think, right away intimidates a lot of brands from even thinking about the category. But, there's a couple of factors. One, if you're a product or a brand that an athlete just loves, I think you can often make that connection, and you typically find a compensation price that makes a lot of sense for both sides. And then number two, our platform has tried to make the process so much easier to where when you create a campaign or an idea, we ask you a series of questions through the process. Is this athlete doing their sport? Is there travel involved? Who's going to arrange? Are they going to need to send you images to approve? How many days? How long afterwards? So that by the time you actually get to that athlete or their agent, it's a much more seamless process. So now they can entertain these 2,500, these 5,000, or these $10,000 deals, depending on what level of athlete is, which is really exciting to me because there's a lot of athlete that's really meaningful for, and that can start to show the value to those brands, give them great experiences to hopefully invest more and to drive even more adoption over time. And that's really what our passion is to, there's so much value that's being created in athlete marketing, but the problem is it's held hostage by the relationships now. So we really want to bust that open to allow more people to enter the space.
So Chase, how has the NIL, obviously that's the big news right now, how has that kind of changed your business, and how has your business been working with that?
Yeah. So, it's funny. Anytime you're trying to really create a big change or disrupt the scene, it takes a long time for people to adopt it. And obviously we created a platform, a marketplace for athletes. And so that can usually take 5 to 7 years for people to really kind of adjust their habits. And the NIL opening up, we always knew it was something that could be coming in the future. There's continuing to be more power put into the hands of athletes, but we didn't have an exact timeline on it. And so when we launched this in 2018, we were just kind of right ahead of it. And when I saw it start to develop last year in 2020, it was obviously a challenging time for a new company. We were trying to essentially reserve cash. I said, hey, instead of trying to grow right now, let's really focus on where the future of sports marketing endorsements are going. And so that was into the hands of college athletes. We were already being worked with, all the major professional athletes and their agents. So we said, let's create that same infrastructure and empower the college athlete to now work with thousands of brands in their local communities or at a high level, and be able to actually get paid, put a contract together, disclose that through their compliance office, and do it above board. And so we launched, we did the first deal ever on July 1 at 12:01 with the Cavender twins. So Haley and Hannah Cavender, and Boost Mobile did a deal. We're actually in New York. It was super exciting to see. And then we did a number of deals, all that came through that day. And then since July 1, we've had over 3,000 offers made out to athletes over the eCom Source platform. So it's just been incredible to see the amount of just volume, that's just entered the space of athlete marketing. I mean, that's more than we had seen the year before that. So, and that's what's exciting for us, because obviously college athletes, deserve to get paid for what they're good at and the audience and the value that they create. But really, it's putting it top of mind on these brands and these local small to medium-sized businesses to now say, I could get 3 athletes from my local community to come into my restaurant, come to my grand opening, and that will dramatically change our bottom line. And so it's just been really exciting to see finally these parties coming together, and really they're being forced to use a platform like ours because there's no other way to scale that with the with the old, sort of relationship only process. So
I think it's always important too. I don't know what brands and what influencers and athletes are watching, but I think there's also different levels. And you spoke on the monetary value of companies getting into the space. But as an athlete myself, I'm from Ohio, which anybody that knows about Ohio knows we don't really have a lot of mountains, but I take a lot of pride being from Ohio. And that's a whole nother angle where, these local deals where it's not really going to benefit them to do social media on my channel. Like I live in Utah, I'm in Italy right now. It doesn't really make sense, but there's so much you can do on the local level. And as an athlete, it kind of hits close to home to be able to promote mom and pop businesses. And I know eCom Source, they do more than just social media deals. Hey, post and all this. They kind of do a wide range of businesses from, the ground up.
Well, and I think, Louis, you're a great example. Professional snowboarder, multi-Olympian, X Games champion. So people always assume, all right, you got to be from Colorado or Tahoe or Whistler. And you really leaned into your story of you grew up in Ohio. It wasn't easy. It was never obvious. And I think you've continued to tie back to there. I know you do your rail jam there, and you've connected with so many local businesses. And I think that's created a huge identity for you that you've been able to continue to give back to that community, but also separate yourself from the other, hundreds of professional athletes that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, I did a deal with a bank, and I did their commercials for them for radio. And at the time I had all these big deals going, but to me, again, it comes back to doing something local, doing something in my area, which means a lot to me. And I think that's another thing is just there's so many different angles as brands and brands looking for athletes, but also how athletes view brands. It's not just what's am I going to get out of it? How much is it? But there's a lot of things, especially when you connect with an athlete that's on par with what you're looking for. And I think, again, it comes back to the communication and introducing brands to these athletes that they might not know anything about each other. But once you kind of align on certain ideologies, it really makes a lot of sense. And athletes are willing to do things that they truly believe in. And I think that's where you're going to get the best out of the athlete, and the athlete's going to get the most out of the brand is when those ideologies align.
Totally. And, we've seen some really unique deals come together. I mean, one is Microsoft uses our platform once a quarter to bring in athletes to speak at a internal meeting to fire people up. A lot of people are hiring athletes to join Zoom meetings to really build that company culture. And then all the way to, athletes showing up to local events. So we've had, smaller brands look to engage. We've had podcasts say, hey, I would love these 3 University of Georgia athletes to jump on and call in once a week. And so it's just been really cool to see the amount of different ways and the amount of different size brands all being able to come together and find those right athletes that come from like incredibly different backgrounds. I mean, one of the biggest exciting things we saw was the amount of deals we were bringing to female athletes. These big stadiums and NFL teams and iconic athletes get so much attention that's kind of where a lot of these brands just immediately gravitate to, because they don't want to go spending the time of like hunting down that unique athlete that might speak perfectly to their audience, but is so fragmented from a representation standpoint, it's challenging. And so we just saw that brands coming there were like, wow, we never even knew that there was like a women's soccer team in our community, or that there was this Olympic athlete that's from our hometown. We could bring them in and they could speak at this event. And so it's just been really exciting beyond the classic social media campaigns, which are great ways for people to kind of dip their toe into the process of working with individuals, but really getting creative and coming up with all kinds of ways that individuals can bring a ton of value to a business. So Louis, tell us a little bit about what you're up to. So obviously you've been a US Olympian snowboarder, but where are you today?
So my grandma's from Italy, so it's always been a dream of mine to obviously go to the Olympics. And then now I've had the unique opportunity to honor my grandmother and hopefully go to the Olympics for Italy. So I'm in Italy right now. I go to Switzerland for 3 weeks to go riding, and it's go time for the winter sports, because start qualifying December, January, find out, go in February. So it's bang, bang, bang. But yeah, been pretty excited. It took a little longer than I was hoping, but we're here now. So it's just a new chapter in this book that I'm building of life, and I'm pretty excited.
That's awesome. So now, obviously, in the U.S., there's no snow anywhere. What's your typical migration look like to kind of follow a half pipe to ride and train in throughout the years?
So with snowboarding, people always ask, "Oh, when's your season? What do you do in the summer?" And I'm definitely big on, the healthy lifestyle. And, I stopped drinking. No drinking for 10 years now. And so I really take my whole fitness and health to the next level just because snowboarding can be gone in a blink of an eye. So I've always kind of followed that model that you want to live with no regrets. So when I'm not snowboarding, I'm working out, but we can go to Mount Hood, Oregon, outside Portland, and they have some summer riding. And then we'll go to Saas-Fee in Switzerland in October, and then Kitzsteinhorn, which is in Austria, November. So you can really ride as much as you want. We used to go to New Zealand quite a bit because of the opposite seasons, but COVID made that a little difficult the last 2 summers. So Mount Hood in June, July, Saas-Fee October, and then Austria in November. So it's a lot of riding, and where you get to is you kind of have to walk that fine line of getting enough time on the snow. But since I've been doing this for so long, really taking care of my body and listening to my body. But it's fun. It's kind of crazy though to leave warm weather and then you go onto a glacier and it could be dumping snow the whole time.
That's awesome. And it's funny you talk about how you've been really committed to your craft and your body and taking care of yourself to not kind of like get the rug pulled out of you when unexpected. But you've also had a great job, working with some of those longtime sponsors like groups like Toyota and Casio, G-Shock, and obviously we worked together at Red Bull. You were on Nike for I think Nike's entire time in the sport of snowboarding. So that
Yeah.
that every year they operated in snowboarding, you were the guy. And so I think that getting advice from you and people getting to hear of how you've evolved is really really exciting, and it's great that you're able to share this with the entire group.
I mean, I think it's great, and I think it's amazing what you're doing because of being able to help brands build the bridge between the brands and the athletes. And like you said, it's kind of confusing. If I'm a brand, how do I get in touch with this person I've never met? I don't know this sport. I don't know who the representation is. They don't know anything, but this kind of streamlines it. And I'm a big believer in building your relationship with with the client or the brand, and that kind of clears out some of the miscommunication, which tends to be the one issue you see sometimes when you don't talk to the brand directly and understand their thoughts. But it's been pretty interesting to do the transition over my 16-17 year career and how things have changed, and learning along the way, making mistakes along the way, but ultimately finding brands. And it comes back to the partnership that I've been with I've been with Toyota for 10 years now. And, we do so much more than just my results on the mountain. But, I went on a bass fishing trip with some of their anglers and NHRA, and drove a pace car at NASCAR. And we did something at the national dealer meeting. I mean, there's so many things that you can do with brands, and I enjoy all of it because it's fun to be a part of a brand that you believe in. And I think that's where you kind of get the most, where both people get the most out of it.